So, as always, whatever arises for you is just right. It could be emotions you're not expecting, right? When we talk about emotions arising to the surface, we often have certain emotions that we are expecting because that's kind of what we put into the box of emotions, right? It could be sadness, grief. Sadness is the one that everybody focuses on, to be honest. When we think about emotion work, everybody thinks, when am I going to cry? What's going to come up and make me cry? That's one drop in an ocean, right? And and there's so many other facets of emotion to explore, and that need to be explored because they're going to come knocking on the door. And if you're just focused on one or two or three, then you're going to be resisting a lot that does come calling. So yeah, the emotion, the texture of what can arise in the space can be very variable, right? Emotions can be frustration, and many of them we don't see as emotion, right? So like frustration can often be like, yeah, I've spoken about frustration a few times, but it's one that catches people a lot, where it's like, yeah, I'm not experiencing anything. Oh, I don't like this. No. That's frustration and confusion. I don't understand. I don't understand. Uh, right. So a couple of them I mention quite frequently because these are actually the most deceptive, in that we so easily get caught up in the view of the emotion without seeing it. That's what happens. Again, there's nothing wrong with any single emotion in your experience, but we so easily get caught up in the view, right? Uh, the voice of the emotion is welcome, but if that's the only perspective that you're taking, it feels very limiting, right? But when you can see it as something arising in your space of experience, that this is an aspect of me, something that I am allowing, something that I am allowing in this greater space of awareness, in this greater space of me being aware, right? It's this shift from this very narrow perspective of whatever arises, that's the identity that I am. It's not that that's not you, right? It's not that it's not an aspect of you, but it's a very small aspect of you. um, it's one aspect. So it sounds like a technicality, but it's a huge difference to be able to see it and not be identified with it, but still allow it, is very different from the way we usually experience emotion. So anything can come up. Fear, grief, and it can have a story and it cannot have a story. Neither is better than the other. It could have a memory, it could have absolutely no memory at all, right? It could be weird memories from your past. It could be weird, random thoughts and images getting stirred up in the mind by this deepening process. Again, we're deepening in the space, and often that deepening can lead to feeling like we can rest in this experience of being in this uh stillness easier and easier. But also at the same time, we're opening up to all of these things coming up. So again, there's no going backwards on the path, that, oh, okay, so there I was going forwards and now I've hit a turnaround point and now I'm going backwards because there's too many thoughts, blah, 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 blah. You're just getting caught up in one thought then that's judging your experience. So even thoughts, strange thoughts can arise, and that's fine. Don't take a stand against thought. see it as just the narrative, just fluctuations in consciousness, right? It's like, think of a swimming pool, right? It can get stirred up and it can seem very rough all of a sudden, but it's still just that same swimming pool, right? Or the ocean, right? It can get stirred up, or it can be quite flat and calm. And it's still the same thing, right? You're still experiencing this experience of being, of consciousness, of awareness, but sometimes it's very busy, and that's when the mind's busy and making lots of thoughts and stories and narratives, and that's fine. Sometimes it's very still, and that's fine. And it does, as this process deepens, we get access to more stillness that we wouldn't maybe have experienced earlier on if we'd never ever sat in stillness before. That definitely does tend to happen. But what also happens is you open yourself up on both spectrums of the bandwidth. To go back to where I started this talk, the ocean becoming flatter and flatter and flatter, right? This is your experience, consciousness, your internal experience. The flatter that it becomes, or the more you can cultivate this, if you ever get access to a little bit more peace, a little bit more of this, that is what gives the space for the heavy stuff, right? It's like a spectrum, and as soon as we can increase one end of the spectrum, we can increase the other end of the spectrum, and they're not actually separate, right? The fact that you can experience more peace and calmness and stillness is linked to, it's the flip side of that is, okay, cool, you're increasing to the point now that you can handle this, right? They're completely interlinked, but the mind sees it as separate aspects, right? The mind sees it as, that was good, oh no, that was bad. This was a good meditation, this was a bad meditation. I'm getting better, I'm getting worse. I'm going up, I'm going down. I'm healing, I'm having a setback. I'm reversing. It's not the case. But the key is belief in thought. That's what is so freeing, because experience will continue to fluctuate. Experience will continue to, have all these different aspects and bring you new things to integrate, new aspects of emotion and consciousness and yourself to meet. And this can be physical. It can be very physical sometimes. For many here, it will be very physical, right? That's been the nature of this for you. But the belief in thought is what makes it so much more challenging. That's where the suffering comes in, right? It's like a very common saying in mindfulness circles that, you can experience pain. Pain is just pain, but it's when we resist that pain, and that's when it only turns into suffering, right? You can experience pain without suffering. And that's the key. That, and then suffering, I would say, equates to belief in thought, because thought is where resistance happens. You can even experience the energetic feeling of resistance and still just know that that is resistance, but you don't have to believe the story. So that's a major aspect of this, and it's almost what we're working on so much of the time is be with the experience, it's okay, allow it. But the story that the mind is telling is just the story that the mind is telling, right? It's not that the story can't be part of the experience, but it is that the story is a story about the experience. It's not what's actually happening. It's not that it's not relevant at all. It's not that we have to completely say, okay, you know, everything the mind says, and it's you know, it's the problem. It's just the belief and the identification with it that's the problem. So it's subtle because, again, it's very easy to suddenly start resisting the narrative, start resisting the thought, but that doesn't help. And it's okay if that happens, right? Resistance is sneaky, and you know, it will start to play out without us even realizing, and that's fine. It's always going to happen like that, where resisting starts to happen, and then we become aware that resisting is happening, and then we can start to soften by allowing, right? Okay, resisting is happening. I don't need to resist the resistance, because then you're just tightening it, right? It's like resistance is happening. Oh no, resistance is happening. Resistance mustn't happen. Oh no, right? That's just tightening it, right? So it's like, oh, okay, there's resistance. Oh, okay, there's resistance. That's it. That's just the simple acknowledgement is the beginning point. The simple acknowledgement that resistance is happening. Oh, I see that. Wow. Oh, I can see that. Okay. Maybe it takes you a while to see it. That's fine. It's still profound. The fact that you're noticing it is so profound compared to the way all of us used to move through this, right? The way many people will continue to move through this until you don't really have a choice. So again, expectation is not helpful. It's not necessary, because whatever you notice in the moment you notice it, that's great. Well done. I mean, that really give yourself a pat on the back. Like, if you're meditating and you're having so many thoughts, right? You're just, you know, you're thinking about how bad you are at meditating, and you're thinking about everything else you'd rather be doing or whatever, right? You're thinking how long you've been at this, or how much longer is this going to go on for? And then at some point you realize, yes, that's all thought, right? I'm getting caught up in the thoughts. That's the answer there is not to, and I'm so bad for getting caught up in the thoughts. You know, there's more evidence of how shit a meditator I am. No, don't do that, right? If you notice in that moment of noticing, pat yourself on the back, right? Ah, cool. Right. I would have just carried on not noticing this for like hours and hours. But now, even if it was 20 minutes of thinking, and then one moment of awareness of thinking happening, that's profound. It really is. And that gets strengthened through positive reinforcement. Right? Our minds respond best to positive reinforcement. So cool. Let's utilize that. It's way more beautiful than negative reinforcement. There's no need for that. Right. So yeah, in any of these moments that you become aware, just congratulate yourself, right? Okay, cool. That's it. That's the muscle I want to train, right? That's what I'm actually here to do. I'm trying to notice, or resistance, right? I'm resisting. I'm resisting. Okay, cool. Well done. You noticed. That's great. That's going to reinforce that way more than self-judgment and criticism and all of that. And the thing is, you can always use this, right? Because again, if then you start going into self-judgment and criticism, at some point you can notice that as well, right? It's like, I'm going to self-judgment and criticism. I shouldn't be going to self-judgment and criticism. Oh, wow, that's more self-judgment and criticism. Oh, wow, okay, cool. I noticed that. Cool. So yeah, it really doesn't matter what stage you're at. The softness, the lightness of this is always the best way to approach this. But even if it's, you know, the heaviest stuff ever that you've ever experienced, the most challenging aspects of your experience ever that you feel like you're experiencing, there can be that, and at the same time there can still be this lighter aspect of experience that is, even amidst that whole story of, you know, and it's not only a story. There can be the really intense physicality, the really intense energy, the really intense, you know, whatever it is, emotional experiences passing through. And there can be the mind saying, oh, this is the most intense it's ever been. But to let go of that, to notice that that's still labeling, right? This can be what it is in intensity, and it doesn't need more stories telling us that. So that can be there. And at the same time, there's still something that's not touched by any of that. Right? It was a big shift for me at some point when no matter what arose in my experience, it could be the most intense resistance ever, right? Just like wanting to blink out of existence because I did not want to be with what was here. That was what was playing out. And at the same time, there's still something that's just like, wow, look at it go, right? Look at this experience. Like, look at the mind, look at what I'm experiencing. And it's like that is untouched. So it's always available, right? This different perspective. And the mistake that the mind makes is to convince itself that it needs to suffer. This is it, right? This is the mind really, it's a belief. It's a very strong belief that when intense experiences are here, that needs to be a bad thing, that needs to be suffering, right? It doesn't feel like a conscious choice because it's not really. It's an unconscious belief that's like really deeply layered in the psyche, but it's a massive one. Because even then, the most intense experiences can come up, the most challenging experiences come up, and the mind has the belief that, and I need to turn this into a serious issue, right? I need to turn this into something really bad, right? And again, it's not to deny how difficult it can feel sometimes. It's not to bypass anything, right? I want to make that clear. It's never to do that. But it is to see that we don't need to add, an extra layer of seriousness and an extra layer of suffering on top. Because it is that, and I can see it, I've noticed it a few times in some of the Q&A and the sharings here, even in the midst of intense emotions, right? Someone sharing like, yeah, it's just this resistance, right? These emotions, but I can sense it more when there's even in the midst of that, there's more of a lightness in the background as well. There's something that's like, and so it's starting to realize that that's okay. That's what it's starting to realize. It's like in the past, that would be a reason for more suffering. That would be a reason to, throw a tantrum against the universe. Why should I be feeling this? What have I done to deserve this? Right? All these stories on top are what make it so intense. And when we believe it, right, we get tied into the identity of it. Yeah, we really can feel very small. And it can feel very like our problems are very big. But what we're seeing here is that it's so much of it is conditioning and belief. And that as we explore this more, what is really key is that we start to see that this lightness and this heaviness are not in opposition with each other, right? This is so key, that you can experience resistance and you can experience being okay with the resistance at the same time. So it's beautiful. Nothing needs to go away for anything to get better. I remember I mentioned this in one of the meditations, and somebody said putting it like that was really helpful. And I remember the realization happening for myself was really helpful. That is like, in the midst of everything that I don't want to be here, I learned to notice that it's still okay. And I can still actually be having this kind of loving kindness and this appreciation for experience. It's not like one has to go away for the other one to come online. And that's so key, because otherwise we could be waiting we can be waiting a long time if we keep on feeling like things are only going to get better once I get rid of all of that. Or, every time something challenging comes up, it feels like it's disrupting the peace. But it's not really. What we're learning is we're going to see more and more how that amidst the roughness, there's still actually the stillness. There's still actually the lightness. Even in the heaviest experience, there's still kind of a lovely way to say it. I think someone said it once. I think it was Ajashanti that, and I've heard a couple of people use it. It feels like a little smile of reality, right? In the midst of your most intense experience, you can always find this little smile. And sometimes it might seem very faint, very distant. Like I can't really see it. Like if you're looking for the planets, if you in the Netherlands, can't really see it behind all the clouds. But there can be this little smile that we start to see more and more. That's kind of like this, and it's okay. And even still, it's okay. And even when the mind is throwing a tantrum and the body is going through, feels like a washing machine, right? Feels like your body's been chucked into a washing machine, and it's just it's like everything is happening all at once. And that doesn't have to completely erase this little smile from reality that it's okay. I know it's okay. And that's what starts to come online more and more. So, yeah, that's why it's not about any perfect experience happening and clinging onto that. It's about seeing it more and more in whatever is here, and that there's nothing in opposition. So that's why I like to share, don't worry about this imagined future state of full recovery, or whatever terms the mind is putting it into, total healing, or just start here and start to see what's already here that is okay. And that okayness can start to, because you're never going to get away from this experience. What's going to happen though is this experience is always changing, and the more we open up to it, the more it can change and be experienced differently. But we don't, it's beautiful, we don't need to get into an imagined future where all of this is gone. It's just not necessary. So it might be uncomfortable to hear that, because we're like, oh, damn, I'm really not going to get away from that one thing I don't want to feel. But the good news is that one thing that you don't want to feel is not quite the monster it's made out to be. It really can seem like that until you pull back the veil and you see, the smile is there as well, even behind that really scary looking face. And that's the beauty of total allowance, unconditional acceptance, is there's nothing that's left out. It's like there's nothing that's like, okay, but that one you have to resist, because that's the one that we shouldn't accept. No, there isn't anything like that, which is, it's great. It's simple. It's not complex. It's not like you have to filter your experience and decide. That's what the mind's trying to do. It's filtering, right? It's filtering. And what about this experience? What about that experience? This is where I should go. This is where I shouldn't go. This is safe. This is dangerous. That's filtering. And that's what we're letting go of. That filtering mechanism is not needed here, but we use it so often. It's very difficult to put it down. You're like, okay, the filtering mechanism is not needed. I'm going to put it down. Why can't I put it down? Maybe I should hold on to it. No, I'm going to put it down. I can't really put it down. Right. It feels like that, right? It's like, okay, I'm safe. I can just be with this. But like it has very strong pull, the filtering. So But you can loosen your grip on it, right? You can sort of, okay, it's very tight currently, but I can loosen my grip. I can loosen my grip. You're never too you're never too far gone. That's 100% sure. You just have to start where you're at, right? You just have to start where you're at. Loosen that grip in all in all ways of speaking, in the body, in the mind. Just loosen it. And it can feel, focus on the aspect that it can feel quite relieving, that you don't have to filter. Even if it's difficult to let go of that, it's a relief. It's again, it feels like we're on this edge all the time, you know, kind of trying to turn in every direction and get it right. We were just saying, just sit down. You don't have to. You don't have to do that. Just sit down and let it all come to you.